All right, spinner baits have a zillion different blades on them, a bunch of different blade combinations. I'm gonna break it down for you right now. These things, these wind chimes, the blades, I'll break it down for you and tell you exactly what the differences are between the three major types of blades you'll find on a spinnerbait, when you're gonna use one versus the other, kind of my little system, what I do for those. So we're gonna start out with far and away the most popular. This is the willow leaf blade. And this is the willow leaf right there. It's shaped just like a willow leaf. Who would have thunk it, right? But what most manufacturers do is they're gonna probably have two willow leaves. That's the most popular on the willow leaf combinations. Some of them you'll have a willow leaf and a small Colorado in front of it. Most manufacturers are gonna go ahead and do the testing for you and say, figure out what size combinations will actually work better. If you put two of the same size, sometimes they don't run quite right. Sometimes one will just kind of flop around. But the willow leaf is going to have, wait for it, here's a big clue, the smallest circle radius. And what I mean by that is when this blade comes through the water, it's going to spin. That's why it's on a swivel there. The blade, the willow leaf blade, it's going to have the smallest, as it goes around in a circle, it's going to have the smallest circle radius as it spins around. So it's going to have the least amount of vibration. It's going to have the least amount of resistance, which means it's going to move the fastest. So the clearer the water, the more I want a willow leaf blade. It's going to provide a lot of flash, not a ton of resistance, but it's going to have the smallest circle radius. Now you can get a massive willow leaf blade. I think this right here is probably about a 5, and that's kind of standard for the back willow leaf. The 5 is going to have some resistance, a reasonable amount of resistance. You can downsize both and have a smaller circle that it's going to make, and have less resistance, go a little faster. So the willow leaf is what's going to have a little smaller, more flash, less resistance. Keep that in mind. We're going to go up to the next one. The next one is the Indiana blade. And the Indiana blade is a little more of a teardrop shape. And I would just say that maybe Indiana looks like this. No, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. But this Indiana is, I guess maybe it started in Indiana. I think they fish a lot of spinnerbaits up that way. But the Indiana has a little larger circle radius, as I call it. So as it spins, it's going to circle, spin a little bit bigger and it's going to have a little more resistance. It's going to go a little bit slower. It's going to have a little more thump. And the thump of the blades on the spinnerbait make the skirt pulse like that when it goes through the water. And to me, that's a huge deal in the spinnerbait and the action and making fish bite it. So that pulse, that throbbing, is what makes that skirt pulse, what makes those fish come out of nowhere and get it. So the Indiana is going to go a little bit slower. You see, this is kind of a bigger Indiana. This is a 1/2 ounce, and you can see it's a kind of a good size. It's got this red kicker blade on there. This is going to be a real good dirty water spinnerbait right here. That Indiana is going to slow it down a good bit, and in dirtier water, that spinnerbait's going to have that vibration and slow down a little bit more. Let those fish track it. It's going to stay in the strike zone a little bit longer, and then they can find it, zoom in on it, and go in there and eat it. But then your third type of blade is going to be what they call the Colorado blade, and this is just more of a round blade right here. This is on like the Booyah covert spinnerbait. Pretty slick. Jason Christie designed these, very well made spinnerbait, and these are Hildebrandt blades, very high quality, very sturdy, very thick. But the Colorado blade has the biggest circle it's going to make because of the resistance and the shape of the blade. It's going to have the biggest circle. It's going to be the slowest in the water, which in real dirty water, that's what I want. Cold water, sometimes that Colorado blade is really good in cold water, slows that blade down, And I can tell you right now, this has only got a single Colorado on here. That single Colorado is going to spin around real big. It's going to really slow this bait down. So you throw it, let that thing hit the bottom, and you can really, whoa, 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 that big old, they call them hubcaps, man. That thing looks like a hubcap off a VW Bug, doesn't it? It's a big old freaking hubcap. The big old hubcaps, man. They're going to spin around and around real big, slow that spinnerbait way down. Like I said, I kind of like it in real dirty water, muddy water, regardless of season. And then it definitely in more of your wintertime, colder temperatures. That's where that big hubcap is going to come in handy. So that's kind of your three big differences in the blades. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you a couple other little tidbits here. When there's two blades on a spinnerbait, they spin in opposite directions naturally. It's hydrodynamics. I didn't make it up, but yes, I have spent more time than most human beings staring at blades on spinnerbaits going through the water. I remember a number of years back, one of the manufacturers had counter-rotating blades on a spinnerbait like it was something amazing. All of them have it. It was kind of silly, dumb, I thought. But like, you know, any blade combination, one's going to spin one way, you know, like this one's going to go this way, and then whichever way this one starts, the back one's going to go the opposite direction. It's just the way it goes, and that's the way they stay balanced. If they both went the same rotation, well, number one, hydrodynamics does not make that happen. It makes them spin the opposite direction. That's your other tidbit of information. And then the other tidbit of information is you'll see this, you know, whether it's your hubcap here on your Colorado blade or your Indiana, and really the kind of the same thing goes for your willow leaf blade. The more cup you have in a blade, this, like I said, this is the Indiana blade. This has a little bit of cup in it. The more cup you have in it, the smaller your spin radius is going to be, because it's almost like the prop in the water. It's gonna shorten the rotation, and so you're gonna have actually less vibration with more cup in your blade. If that thing was perfectly flat, like real flat, it was gonna cause more resistance, and it's gonna cause a bigger circle. So don't think that because there's more cup in a spinnerbait blade that there's more vibration. It's actually less vibration when you have that in there. Like this one, the Hildebrandts, they're pretty flat. A lot of Colorado blades have more cup than this, and I think that's one of the reasons that the Hildebrandt have a nice amount of you know, so much vibration, is that they're so much flatter than most of the other blades out there. And you know, if you look at their willow leaf blades as well, I think this one is a Hildebrandt willow leaf blade. You see, it's pretty flat. You know, it's pretty flat, and this is kind of like a standard one. It's got a little bit more cup in it. I mean, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but definitely a little bit flatter. That's one thing. And then on the Hildebrandts and some of the other ones, you have your hole is real close to the edge of the blade. That also helps increase your spin, your circle radius. See, that's there. I mean, just a fraction closer to the edge. Some willow leaf blades, the hole is actually down a good bit. It might make them a little sturdier, but it's going to cause your circle, your spin radius to reduce, less vibration. So that's kind of my little 2 cents on spinnerbait blades, the differences between the major three and a few other misconceptions that I hear a lot of people throwing out there. So if you have any other questions or anything you want to know about spinnerbait blades, hit me down there in the comments. Hit me down there in the comments. Let me know what you want to see. Spinnerbait blades.